Hello, and welcome to our story about Chapter 9 and Essays 3 and 4 in Signorelli's book on Story Branding 2.0. Please do not be alarmed that you do not see me at the current time because unfortunately I must keep my identity hidden for the time being. But I do promise I will reveal myself when the time comes. So let us begin to learn about Chapter 9 and Essays 3 and 4 in the book on Signorelli. Chapter 9 focuses on what is a hero. So let's listen to some teenagers about what they believe a hero really is.
I think a hero would be someone in their life in some way to
I think sometimes it's hard. I think people who can give people like hope and dreams.
I think somebody is a hero when they or when they change their life for the better.
Well, I think somebody's a hero if they go out of their way to help somebody else and they don't gain anything from it. They're doing that kind of stuff.
Someone's a hero if they save other people. I think someone's willing to help people who need help. Selfless and not be putting others above themselves. I typically think of someone that's selfless as a hero, thinking of the greater good.
Most people are kind of set to live their lives for themselves, and always just the most noble thing you can do in life is to live for someone else. I've seen a lot of self-reliance and I've seen a lot of self-hate.
So, if you haven't already guessed, my name is Bill Prater, but I don't let that out to everyone, so make sure you keep that to yourselves. What we're learning about is brands. We're learning about telling a story, and stories, as we've learned, have conflicts and walk through many different things. And so if we're going to treat our brand as a story, then we have to break it down as a story. And that's what Chapter 9 does. We talked about the inner layer and the outer layer. This focuses on the brand's inner layer. All right. So the analogy they want you to use is your body is your outer layer. It reacts to what your inside does. The soul, your soul is the inner layer, and the body listens to the soul. So the body reacts to the soul. So if you try to work outside in instead of inside out, what you're going to see is that you don't have a brand that has any lasting power. You don't have a story that people want to connect to. Why is a hero so important? Why is Batman such a figure that has stood the test of time for close to 100 years now, 80 or 90 years? It's because he has a story. He has a lot of those ideals and values that people believe in. All right. He does things for his selfless act. He does things for other people without asking for anything in return. The ultimate reason we know why, his identity is hidden. Okay, so you have to, in your brand, find your inner layer, find your soul. What do you stand for? And that's what matters. And it comes down to belief. All right, you've got to be a brand first approach. There's a very common saying in marketing that the customer is always right. Unfortunately, that is not the case. We have all been through situations. I'll tell you one of mine. I used to work at a video store when I was going through college. And we would order out a lot. And on one occasion, we ordered from Big Boy. called Frisch's in this area, but we ordered from Big Boy. And of the 4 of us that worked there, 3 of us got food poisoning. Now, I had eaten at Frisch's time and time and time again, but that one time was my last time. I don't eat there anymore because I had one bad experience. Do I rationally understand? Sure. But should Frisch's change the way they do because they made a mistake? No, they shouldn't. They should go to their core value, brand first approach. I'm not always right as the customer. All right. I'm going to lose customers. I'm going to tell people not to shop there. That's the way we are. We unfortunately have a cynical nature. The book actually calls it our BS monitor, and it's always up because unfortunately a lot of us in this day and age believe that people are always going to go against us. But your brand first approach, and that brand is the hero of the story. Your belief is the why. All right, why are we doing this? Why do you do it? If you get yourself into a situation where you don't have a hero, why does Batman do what he does? He has a backstory. All right, all of us have a backstory. We have people who know different layers of the backstory. The people who are closest to us probably know it all. And then as you go out among your friends and your acquaintances and your coworkers and your strangers, they know less and less about you, but that doesn't change the backstory. You have to keep your backstory. It's who we are. It's the reason why we do things. All right. There's a big important part about mission statements versus stories. Mission statements provide rationale and the purpose of the brand. All right. So these mission statements are an outer layer. They're not the inner layer. It's not who we are. A lot of them make no sense. All right. One that comes up, nobody can eat just one. I don't know of any that I only eat just one. I never grab a bag of pretzels and eat one. I never grab a bag of Cheetos and eat one. We don't eat one of anything. It's an ambiguous statement that makes no sense. All right. You have to have a value that drives you. All right. The bigger companies, the ones that are mentioned in the book, the Nikes and the Apples, they have these stories that transcend. They're trying to make everything better so Apple can go from computers to phones and make it very, very easy, where someone that is stuck in one story and has one claim can't do it, because claims prevent arguments. You can't have an argumentation. If you make a claim, you're stuck to that claim, and that's all there is to it. Stories are inviting. They bring us in. We want to hear the story. We want to know about the story. All right. And that's what we do. We get invited into the story. We're shown a little bit more each time. And that's important. Okay. Because the hero has all the attributes to accomplish physical and mental feats. They can do what we can't. All right. We root for the hero because they can physically do and they can mentally do, and we have some sort of connection. All right. It involves who we are. We have a connection. Whatever your hero is, whether it's a hero like a fireman or a policeman, or, a family member, or if you're into, obviously it makes millions upon billions of dollars, the DC universe, the Marvel universe, we're infatuated with heroes because we're attached to them. We know, people growing up, we know that kids growing up are into sports athletes and musicians and television stars. We're all attached because we create this emotional base. How have you been if your television show that told the story all of a sudden disappeared and the story isn't there anymore? It's like we lost someone close to us and we've never met them. And in fact, the people aren't anything like what they play on screen, but we're attached to them. It creates some sort of emotional connection, and that's what the hero does. Something that the villain on the other side just doesn't. And we have to take that into our brand, because this motivation comes from an important value or belief. All right. Once we do that, it allows us to form relationships. And we've talked about the 1 through 4 level, and you want a level 4 relationship. That is a relationship that you have. The people who stand outside and wait for the new album to come out because the new Jay-Z album is going to be just as good as the last Jay-Z album. Or you have to go see someone like Vin Diesel on the first weekend because Vin Diesel, it makes great movies. That's what we do. That's the relationship we form. And that's what brands are shooting for as well, is that relationship. Okay? Because the story hero and the brand hero are really the same. All right, because level 4, you will overpay. All right, you will justify why you need the new Apple 7, whatever they're on, over the Samsung Galaxy, and you'll overpay for it, even if there's hardly anything next to it, because you have that attachment. The people who tell you not to, and the people who are rational about it, they didn't bring emotion into it. They don't have a level 4 relationship, folks. All right, they are not buying for emotional reasons. When we buy for an emotional reason, we justify even if we know it's not right, we create a rational reason to justify for our friends and our family why we acted in an emotional one. All right. Because we have that attachment, and that's what everyone's going for. So when you're creating a brand, when you're creating a hero, you need an ultimate truth. What is your ultimate truth and goal? And when you come up with that, when people start to switch to you, they look like copies, and copies are imitative. All right. If you copy off someone, you're not the original, and that's extremely important. All right. Moving on to SA3, SA3 talks about 5 things marketers can learn from storytellers, bringing the storytelling into the marketing. And these are pretty straightforward. One is the small M versus the big M. Small M is functional. The story that's used in the book is that if you talk about someone who did X amount of squats per day on their legs and then won the race, there's a correlation between the workout and the success. The big M does the exact same story. All it does is mention is that the guy who won was a paraplegic. It makes no assumptions. It lets you make the assumption. It gives you an engaging story, and it makes it inspirational. And that's what takes it to the big M. When you have that emotional attachment, a functional attachment, I know that if I work out more, I'm going to be in better shape. That doesn't mean I will. If there's some sort of emotional attachment, I might. So you have to attach it to a bigger value, and it must be engaging. Number 2, to engage the audience, storytellers leave the thinking to us. I teach this in my speech when I'm doing all the time with acting. All right, you create the story, let them come up with what happens. Let them come up with it. Don't push the voice. Let them come to you. Let them figure it out. Let them figure out what the next step in the story is. And then they will be engaged because they created it. If we create it, then we're going to have more of an idea and more of a belief in it. Storytellers just define their themes before developing their plots. You do the theme first. Don't write the story, then figure out what the story is supposed to say. Work backwards. What do you want to get out of the story? And then write the plot for it. All right, don't pigeonhole yourself. If you get too tight and you tell too much of a story, then we're going to be stuck in it and you can't get out of it. Okay, so you have to keep it simple, but have a strong theme and then let the story develop from there. 4, storytellers don't use focus groups to decide what the point of view is. That's the whole putting the customer first. Don't look at what the customer wants and then change your belief to it, because then it's not really a belief. All right, you take the belief and then you figure out what demographic is going to work for you and you hit that demographic. Start with your core belief. Don't manufacture it just to sell a product, because you're selling out and it won't last because the market changes way too much. Lastly, great storytellers always give us something to look forward to. All right. And I feel like I shouldn't say much more about that. Like I should just let it linger. But consistency equals a connection. If I know that the Apple product's always going to be strong, then I look forward to the next one because I'm curious what they're going to do. I'm curious to what the sequel, Star Wars 8 is going to do. And I'm already worried about Star Wars 9 and what it's going to do. All right, there's more. The second essay was actually called Trust Dust. And this one was quite interesting. If you haven't read it, please take the time to read it. It takes all of about a minute and 15 seconds. It talks about a guy who checked in his spam folder for Trust Dust, or he looked in the spam folder and found an ad for Trust Dust, which I find a little bit ironic in the fact that you can't really trust spam stuff and that's in there and that's legitimate. Long story short, he goes to track it down to see if Trust Dust exists because it's supposed to spray it on people and they trust you more. And it's based off of an oxytocin that we release when we trust people. And there is some legitimacy to it, although he definitely mentioned several times if you're trying to get the trust of someone, don't just spray something on them. It's probably not going to work, and it's probably going to get you some sort of lawyer. But it's interesting that it brings up an extremely important question. And it's the question I would like you to tackle this week for my presentation. And that's my point. What can brands do to effectively express trust in advertising? We can't spray a trust dust out through advertisements, through radio, through television, on billboards. But what can we do to express trust in a way that's different than what we've been doing before? That's kind of the question at hand. So I want to thank you. Unfortunately, I see the bat signal off to the side, so I'm not going to say I have to go, but my time is up and some people need me. So thank you for my presentation. I enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoy my presentation as well. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say. Batman out.